I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of Playing from the Tips, Golf Australia Magazine's preview and tipping show covering the world of professional golf with a hyper focus on Australia and the ISPS Honda Australian Open this week, alongside the return of some guy named Tiger Woods. My name is Jimmy Emanuel. I'm the host of this rolling something podcast that we do each week, and I'm joined by two of the very best so-called experts golf has to offer. They may be two of the only, but that's okay. First is running late for school and hoping to get a packed lunch like Ewan Porter did every day at the Australian PGA Championship last week from his mother, Rod Murray.
Nice.
Rod, welcome.
What did Ewan have on his sandwiches?
It would have been
It was different
healthy.
every day.
It would have been too. That's what mums do, isn't it?
Oh, well, that's what Ewan likes.
It was Atlantic salmon the first day.
Yeah.
There was a chicken fillet the second day.
Yeah.
Carol Porter, I love her to death. She did offer to make me a sandwich, but I declined. But it was a different sandwich every day. So,
No wonder he's so
yes.
healthy. No wonder he's so healthy. Yeah, lovely. Good to be here, Jimmy. Good to have golf in our backyard.
Absolutely. Next is a man who showed up at his first Australian Open engagement of the week looking like a character out of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Adrian Logue, the new bespeckled Adrian Logue. Welcome back.
Thank you, James. It's a pleasure to be back. How many wins did you have while I was away?
Well, there was one last week, and we'll get onto that very shortly.
That doesn't count.
Okay.
You can't. Min woos.
Well, technically, we had 2 wins because you were away for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was a big win for us.
And 2 wins each.
And Logue, you've already had a win this week. What was the win that I delivered to you last night at Angus and Graysco Golfing that you forgot and left with me?
A delicious Rocky Road from Shauna Crow, like plus sized as well.
Yeah, right. And
I got like a special serving from Shauna.
You won't get another one. You will not get another one.
Did you see that, Rod? That's just been mentioned in the podcast. That ensures another one will come next Christmas.
You've now got in Go Golfing and the Crow, so well done to the two. You'll have to help me out. What does Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas look like?
Kind of Logue.
Yeah, you're going to have to do some research.
He was very well put together.
You'll have to take that offline.
He looked good.
Okay.
Before we jump into this week, let's talk about last week and some highlights from everyone as to what was the thing that stood out to you.
Well, you can't go past Minwoo, can you? It was like a coming out party. We've been kind of waiting for this from Minwoo for probably 6 years, but realistically, the last 12 months or so, he's really been in his own terms, on the simmer. He's been cooking. And I think what we got was the full Minwoo show. He's one of those players who's an excitement machine. I think you said it about Spieth and Tiger. They stand over the ball and it's electric because you just don't know what's going to happen next. It could be brilliant or it could be awful, but it's all part of the ride. It was fabulous to see. I thought it was a terrific event. About the only thing that might have saved it from Cam Smith missing the cut was what happened.
I think Cam Smith's something worth noting as well. The genuine emotion he showed after missing that cut, and he was so disappointed and upset and frustrated by his game, which he had no control over. He was then at Royal Queensland Saturday and Sunday, hitting golf balls, practicing with Grant Field. He's determined to get something back for this week. It was one of those things where you could see it means so much to him that he's so adored in Australia, and he wants to put on a show, and he didn't, and he was flat because of it. So
he comes back, Jimmy. But that's the real barometer. He comes back. He never misses the Australian summer. He never has, and you get the feeling that he never will. He genuinely wants to be here every year and play in Australia. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, good on him.
And
Class act.
Minwoo. I was Minwoo's shadow on Sunday and did his press conference and everything like that. And the thing I noticed about every single thing he did, from the trophy presentations, everything, he was expecting it. There was no overwhelming emotion of I've just done something and had my biggest win for him mentally, and where he places the emotional toll with it. He was expecting it and he handled it brilliantly. So look for more and more and more. And then on Sunday said, I want to be world number one, which can be a poison chalice, but I think not beyond Min's grasp.
Nobody gets to world number one who doesn't think they can. Nobody, literally. So if you don't, you might not say it out loud, and that's where you get into trouble. But if you don't think it, you can't get there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
He's always had that indescribable X factor.
Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah. On last week, we did have one win with Minwoo lead, tipped by yourself, Rod. And
did I?
Yeah, you did. And then we had 3 top 10s.
Go me.
So it's about time you've contributed to this caper.
Good point.
Now at 29 wins, 195 top 10s. So
when I
hopefully by
left
the end of this week, we
a couple
go
of
past
weeks
that 3200
ago,
number.
So when I left a couple of weeks ago, it was at, 28 wins?
Enough out of you.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
29 wins. Okay,
Here's the
good.
thing that you need to perform because you can miss cuts and get dropped. I'm like one of the live captains. My position's safe. I don't need to keep winning. I need to contribute once, twice a year. That's all I need to do.
Oh, God, please drop
That's right.
me.
Yes, exactly right. And speaking of this week, the first one we are going to talk about, ISPS Hunter Australian Open, second year of men and women and all abilities all together, this time in Sydney at the Australian and the Lakes Golf Club. And we have had a bit of a change with the format after a few issues last year. So no longer 2 cuts. There is a smaller women's field. There is only 1 cut made on the Friday afternoon. So all players will play the Lakes and the Australian across Thursday, Friday. Then Saturday, Sunday play will be at the Australian as the primary host venue. I'm sitting in the media centre at the Australian Golf Club. I grew up here. I've never seen it in better condition. So that's
saying
point
something.
1. It is genuinely unbelievable. I came out 2 weeks ago. The Legends Tour had a Pro-Am, and I then was impressed. And it's only had 2 weeks to get better. So the Lakes I'm going to go and have a look at today. I've heard the greens are a little bit slower, but the Lakes is the Lakes. It's always good. It's kind of one of those things. So interesting. Any thoughts on the 2 golf courses, Loeb? You're our golf course man.
Okay. Look, the Australian Dan Cook's team there has done a tremendous job of getting it into shape. Interestingly,
research, nice work.
Nice work.
Well, the world of golf is looking
absolutely
at the agronomy this week because the Australian is very highly regarded in that way, and so is Dan Cook. He's the former super at Eleanor and moved to the Australian, but used to help out at Augusta every year.
Yep.
And it has a lot of contacts worldwide. I was at Fukuoka last week, and the superintendent there said, "I'll see you in Sydney next week. I'm going to the Australian to help out Dan." So nice. That's the sort of pull he has in world golf, and that's certainly what you're going to get from the Australian is impeccable presentation. And I hear as well it's not going to be striped. Have they striped the fairways, Jimmy, or is it just...
There is no striping.
No striping. That's good to hear. I think he's just gone with like the Augusta style, all one direction is what I've heard, which is good. Not
correct.
I'd like the half and half, but the all one direction.
Oh, you mean the left and right?
Yeah.
Into and against, yeah.
Yeah. But
what about the circle mowing into a bullseye? Would you like to see that as well?
No, I'm good with that.
It's a vexed issue, isn't it? Because it's difficult to do really well. Course supers and green staff who can do that really well really put a lot of time and effort into making it happen, and we just dump on it from a great height. We hate it, yeah. So I've got sort of mixed feeling. I get the talent it takes to actually do it, but it's not an aesthetic that I'm a fan of.
No, and apparently they're mowing it like 6 mil as well, which is as tight as a lot of greens you'll find around the place. And it's a great championship venue, and frankly, and you know this very well, Jimmy, it's a fun place to play golf. It's actually
absolutely.
There's some decent width, and it's surprisingly firm. That a lot of that has to do with the sand base. Despite how lush it is, there's a lot of firmness there, and you'll see balls running along the ground, and there isn't resorting to like heavy rough around the greens. It actually plays, quite firm and fast in that respect. With the architecture, there's this lingering question as to how good that layout could be if it was a little less American influenced, and could take on more of the character of the sandy land that it's based on. But it's if it had a little less in common. This is, I think, from my top 100 review last year. But if it had a little less in common with Muirfield Village. And a little more in common with Muirfield East Lothian, then you might have something there.
That is a line good enough to repeat, so well done.
Yes.
That's
anyone who missed it last year, you've now had a dose of Logs.
You've now had a go.
Well, there'd be a few subscribers listening, wouldn't there? And I think
Absolutely.
there's another top 100 list coming out soon, I think, isn't there, Jimmy?
I believe so, yes. We're very close.
The other venue, of course, is the Lakes, which two major tournament venues in a row for Mike Clayton redesigns with Royal Queensland last week. And it was really Mike Clayton's redesign of the Lakes that showed what sandbelt golf in Sydney could be, where he ripped away the grass layer on top of that parkland course and showed that there's exposed sand there and tremendous sandbelt really. And the courses around the Lakes in Sydney have looked at that, and some have embraced it, Bonnie Doon being one, and that's really given Sydney golf two really fantastic world-class layouts there. The Lakes is stand out from a point of view of fun, I think is probably what you would say about it. And there's probably no higher compliment you can give a course than to say that it's great fun. And that sequence of shots on the back nine is probably, it's not just fun, it's probably the most exciting sequence of shots in Australian golf.
From where to where?
From, I think, starting on the 10th tee, which is...
Okay, yeah. There's a daunting shot. Imagine starting on the 10th, day one of the Australian Open, the 10th at the Lakes.
Terrifying.
Just with a gentle breeze blowing left to right across the fairway.
Left to right breeze there is, terrifying. Well, but you don't have to do much on that tee, but it can get quite strong. That's the problem.
Former rugby league player turned golf player agent Braithen Astor played an Australian amateur at the Lakes where he decided he was going to enter, and it got all this newspaper and media hype, and so there's cameras everywhere, and he drew the 10th tee at the Lakes as his opening tee shot.
Welcome.
I don't think a man who's played something for his country has ever been more nervous doing something else. Yeah. That was ridiculous.
For those not familiar, it's a short par 4, but it's just right is dead. There's no planet right of the Lake's 10th fairway. There's nothing exists over there. You're off into the universe, and left is not the place to be.
Well, it's internal out of bounds too, I think.
And it's really just left is just delaying the inevitable too, isn't it? Because then you just hit your second shot off the planet to the right, and that's the end of that.
A very unsettling second shot with the green very narrow from front to back and tiny, sitting at a weird angle and
bunkers and just horrible. Everything about it's horrible.
One of the things you're going to find this week is the desperation to try and prepare for the two golf courses.
Oh, how hard is that going
to be? And we've got weather on the forecast for today, Tuesday, and we've got weather on the forecast for Wednesday. So getting your practice rounds in. I know a couple of players on Monday played 18 holes at the Australian, and we're going to play the back nine at the Lakes to try and get some just extra sort of time in. But of course, you need to spend more time at the Australian. You're going to play 3 rounds here, hopefully. Yeah. And then the other thing being that the men are pretty familiar at the Australian. This is number 22 of Australian Opens for the Australian Golf Club. The Lakes, similar. They've played there a handful of times. The Women's Australian Open has never been played at the Lakes. And this will be the second time the Australian has had the Women's Australian Open. The last time, Joanne Carner won. So that'll tell you how roughly long ago it was.
Well, she'd probably still shoot 80 if she went out there today.
Oh,
as she did last year in the US Women's Senior Open. What an
extraordinary
player she is. Well, on that, Jimmy, for the players, 2 different courses, but 2 really different courses, almost polar opposites in many ways. That's got to be a tough way to prepare for a big and important tournament. The bulk of this field, this is a really important tournament.
Absolutely. It's a really, really hard thing. And they do it a little bit, at other things like Vic Open, they play 2 different golf courses. They're next to each other.
That's right.
They're very similar to each other. There is not quite the similarities. One is slightly better than the other. There's all that sort of stuff.
But you could swap holes, couldn't you? None would look out of place. But here, if you took holes from the Lakes and put them at the Australian, people would think they'd walked into some kind of weird twilight zone.
The thing with the Australian's tough. The Australian's long. It's playing. It's, as I said, it's in immaculate condition. It's going to play really, dependent on how Dan wants to have it each day. It's going to play really different. The Lakes is a much more of you need your yardage book to have some carry numbers in it. You need to know how far you're going to hit it off certain tees and where you want to leave it to then leave your second shot. So caddies this week are going to earn their keep big time.
Yeah, big difference in grasses too.
Yeah, very much.
2 very different grasses too, yeah.
So, you'll have earned your money if you get home this week. You really will have earned your money, caddy and player.
Yeah.
Well and truly.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of players, there is some very well-known names that are the ones to watch. The men's field is mostly a rollover from the Australian PGA Championship. You Adam Scott, Minwoo Lee, Cam Smith, Cam Davis, Robert McIntyre, Adrian Moronk are all coming through. You add Matt Jones, two-time winner of this tournament at his home club, the Australian Golf Club, who arrives here. Also, people like Travis Smythe is in the field. He had a little bit of a break last week after a hectic year in Asia and a bit of injury, but he's one to watch here. He's played a lot of Sydney golf, but there's a really solid field, and then there's that solid core of Challenger PGA Tour of Australasia players in there. David Micheluzzi now in his second event as a DP World Tour player, because this is, of course, co-sanctioned by the DP World Tour, and once again offers 3 Open Championship spots for next year via the Open Qualifying Series. On the women's side, you've got our best Hannah Minjee, Grace Kim, Sarah Kemp, Sarah Jane Smith, and then you add a few like defending champion Ashley Buhai, G.I. Shin, Lucy Lee, Jenny Shin. It's sort of, there's plenty of sort of top level names there. Yeah. So, and then the All Abilities is always worth mentioning as well. Kip Popert from England, who won last year, returns to defend. And then you've got the likes of Juan Postigo, who I've written about a whole lot of times, the Spanish golfer who's got amputated above the knee, who absolutely flushes the eyeballs out of it. They'll be finishing on the Saturday this year. But if you do get out here and you get a chance to watch any of those all-ability players, by all means do.
Puts 3 putts in perspective, doesn't it? It really does. Yeah, and that Juan Postiga, I've not seen this many times, but at the World Cup at Kingston Heath 2016.
Yeah, Metropolitan. Yep.
There were touring pros lining up to watch him hit. They were staggered. They were like, none of them could believe it. I remember Brant Snedeker just walking away shaking his head. How does he do that? How does he do that?
Yep.
These are guys who, they don't stop and look at anybody play golf, but they all stop to have a look at Juan. So, yeah, good to have them there.
So let's get some tips. Rod, we may as well start with you.
First question, are all the Connors there?
There's a fourth Connor this week.
Okay.
So I've been on low Connor watch for anyone who's not aware. Last week, Connor Syme was the victorious Connor. So this week, the race is between Connor Syme, Connor Purcell, Connor McDade, and Connor McKinney.
Oh, Connor McDade qualified, didn't he?
Connor McDade qualified. I've just seen him and his dad, Dennis, coach to Mark Leishman, walking through on my way in this morning. So
good on you, Dennis.
It's a hot low Connor race.
Yeah. Dennis McDade, by the way, anybody's one of the great coaches in Australia, one of the nicest people in Australia. We had him on the Thing About Golf.
100%.
I think last year. Go and look up I might even try and find the link for the show notes so people can have a listen. He's a terrific guy. I love to listen to.
Yep.
My tip, Cam Davis. He was right there and thereabouts last week. That's exactly the sort of form that leads to a win the following week. I'd love to see Minwoo do it. Obviously, the double would be great. But I think, as I did prior to last week, and it turned out to be the case, we're really in for a fabulous 4 days of golf. There was interest all 4 days last week. There was probably a little bit less steam in the back nine you might like. You might have liked it a bit closer coming down the stretch. But having said that, there was no downside to watching Minwoo sort of have that coronation from the 15th or 16th onwards. But I think we're going to get this week, we'll get that really good, close, tight finish that I was hoping for last week.
It's got form at the Australian too. So
Cam Davis, that was his coming out party, wasn't it?
Indeed.
Logue, a men's winner from you?
I feel like there's the local knowledge factor is negated by the differences in the two courses.
Good point.
And therefore, I think it's somebody who can be completely unfamiliar with either could just come along and just play better than everybody. Like that's my feeling about how this is going to play out across the two courses.
Feels like a left field tip coming here.
And, well, not so left field, really.
It feels like a left-handed tip coming here.
No.
Nice.
No, not a... but I'm going with part of the foreign contingent, Nick Hardy, who I think he'll be out to impress on Australian soil. And
your tip just negates your own little leading because he's very familiar with the golf course at the Australian because Gary Barter teaches him, so he spends a lot of time here. So good research.
Nonetheless, he's has he really spent that much time in Australia? I know his girlfriend's Australian. Yes,
and she's a member of the Australian.
I know she's a member of the Australian. That all got factored into my model. That all got factored into my model. I just think he's going to come
model
and
Jesus Christ, model.
Oh, look, I can't reveal too much. Because
there's nothing to reveal. That's why.
There's nothing to reveal. There's a curtain opens and there's a wall behind it instead of a window.
You're familiar with the Wizard of Oz?
There's just
very good.
the hamsters just spinning wheels too.
Jimmy, you were there
I
last
tipped-
week. Gives you a better insight, I think, than the rest of us. You would have seen up close some of the players.
So I tipped Adam Scott to win last week, and he didn't, but he finished in the top 10.
Yeah.
I watched Adam hit balls on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week. He was absolutely hitting it so well. It was, it was just if the putter stayed hot. Then he didn't hit it that well on the Saturday. That was where the putter got a little bit weak. Adam loves the Australian Golf Club.
Mm-hmm.
He will play well at the Lakes. He's experienced there. I think he is due to win something big in Australia to then start him overseas. So I like Adam Scott. Can I just mention before we get off the men's tournament and on to the women's tournament that, Rod, when you mentioned 4 days of interesting stuff, it's exactly what the argument of having a cut at a tournament does. And that's about Live and the PGA Tour signature events. Cut watch with Cam Smith was enthralling.
Yep. You don't get it every week with a big name player like that, but when you get it, Rory trying to make the cut at the Irish Open a couple of years ago, same thing.
100%.
The British
human
Open in
emotion.
Ireland.
Oh, sorry, the Open in Ireland. That's what I'm saying.
The human emotion element of that and watching someone try and get everything out of their game that's not working is fascinating. So I agree completely. Let's quickly jump into women's tips. Rod, let's go back to you again.
Look, this one is actually probably more competitive. There's a bigger percentage of the field, I think, that might be there at the end than what we're going to see in the men's. But I like Hannah Green to always win something, and I like her to win this tournament one day because she has said plenty of times, this is at least as important as any of the majors to her. I don't think she can stomach the notion of ending her career without an Australian Women's Open title, and you tip her every year until she wins one, and then you tip her every year to win the next one. So I'm going to go with Hannah Green. I like Hannah. She'll be in a mood this week too, a mood to get the job done, I think.
Yeah, Loke.
I'm really excited to see Jenny Shin, actually, who I don't think maybe your research has revealed this, Jimmy, but I don't think Jenny Shin's been to Australian shores before.
I don't believe so, no.
Oh. And I picked her earlier in the year, and she disappointed me.
Right.
So I'm going
to. She owes you one.
I'll be out there at the tournament this week, just staring daggers.
Yeah.
But I'm not picking her. I just have that bone to pick with her about not coming through earlier in the year. My colleague Caitlin Muster's in the field, and I'll be hoping for a good week from Caitlin. But Minjee Lee is my pick. I think the Lees tend to work off each other when they have a good result.
100%.
Yeah.
And Minjee will be spurred on by.
She's also that next level, isn't she? Forget about just Australian golf. Minjee is next level in the world of golf. She's in that very top tier, the top 4 or 5 players in the world who any given week she can.
And another notable non-Australian Open winner.
Yeah, very much
along
so.
with Hannah Green.
Well, Australia doesn't have many recent Australian Open winners.
Yeah.
No.
It's been a lot of overseas players. So I think Minjee and Hannah will both have that very high on their priority list of things to be the one to beat the other at doing first.
Yeah, wouldn't it be
that's
great
a great
to-
little internal battle between those two?
Would it be great to see the two of them coming down the stretch head to head, like
absolutely.
nip and tuck? We saw it with Kari Webb and Rachel Hetherington several years ago. It was one of the most memorable tournaments. I can't remember where it was. No, it was at Yarra Yarra. But it was fantastic. That's the sort of thing you could get to see with Hannah and Minjee. They're both from Perth. They've got all that background. Could be fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to the women's event. Could be great.
My tip for the women's event is Gi Shin, who
Good call.
realistically should have won last year.
She should have won 4 or 5 different times. She's won it a couple of times, I think, but she should have won it 4 or 5 more.
She kind of bottled it down the stretch last year. She did win the Vic Open at the start of the year, so she finally got a win in Melbourne, or Victoria, I should say, she'd been chasing. So looking forward to Gi Shin this week.
Great support of Australian golf too.
Yeah. Not bothered by the course variety either. No. Hits the same ball every time very consistently.
Yeah.
And
there's going to be zero concern about the fact that you maybe even on Friday afternoon you could interview Gi and say, what did you find the difference of 2 golf courses?
Oh,
I don't know.
I
shot 67 across both of them.
Yeah,
So,
I was in a red courtesy car yesterday, and today it was blue.
I hit my target on every shot.
right,
Whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move along to our next event, and that is, of course, the Hero World Challenge. Tiger makes his competitive return. So does Will Zalatoris, which is quite exciting. Jason Day also in the field, which will, of course, stir up some people on Twitter to get a bit fired up. Basically, elite small field, Tiger's event in the Bahamas at Albany, the golf course he used to live at. We're all used to it. It's a bit of a money grab at the end of the season, world rankings, points, etc., etc.
Meh is the word I'm looking for. M-E-H, meh.
I'm very glad that, Logue, you're back in the country this week and we don't have Mark Hayes on here because this would be a 2-hour recording of Diatribe.
One of his favourite hits, isn't it? The Hero World Challenge getting world ranking points.
Oh, yeah.
I think, obviously, Tiger's the story. Everyone wants to see the state of his game, the state of his body. He's going to play the PNC father-son as well, or parent-child, they call it, I think, these days. That's the only sort of redeeming factor. The golf course is kind of interesting. The other thing is, as Claire Rogers pointed out on Twitter, we get to see the annual photo of Tiger posing with a Hero motorcycle. Always exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tiger's the story, right? It'll be interesting to see where he's at.
Because that's what Tiger needs to move from cars to motorcycles. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's right.
Am I right in thinking there's been a lot less excitement and hype about Tiger coming back this time than any of Tiger's previous comebacks? Are we starting to not tire would be the wrong word, but has it become a bit... We've seen this a bunch of times already, haven't we? 2017 was the last time he sort of did this comeback and it was off the charts. He played amazing golf. I don't see that necessarily this year. I mean, if you've seen any footage of him walking over the last 12 months, he is struggling. So, but again, he wouldn't tee it up if he didn't think he could play. He's not going to embarrass himself. So, I don't know. Absolutely. But it just feels like there's been less excitement about it this year than maybe it's because we're in Australia and it's the Australian summer and everything, but it just feels like it's got less to it this year. For me.
I agree. I think it's got a bit less to it. I think there was the initial, he's going to play, and then it's like, okay, well, we've been disappointed a few times now.
The event might have had its time too. It may be that it's just had its time. Its time's passed.
Its time might come back because we're into this, like, the PGA Tour will have a shorter season coming up, I think, won't it? Well, we actually don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it'll bring to focus again this silly season type of event, which is what this is, which is it's so infuriating why it has world ranking points.
This has actually gone beyond silly to stupid.
Yeah.
It's just, Tiger picking 19 of his mates to give money away to, and large sums of it.
Yeah.
Which is,
Correct.
Anyway.
All right.
Well, you've got
Let's
a problem, haven't you?
From it and move it on.
If Tiger invites you can't say no, can you?
No.
Which makes John Rahm's non-entry in the field interesting to say the least, given the rumours that have been swirling about him the last couple of weeks, and the fact that he pulled out of Tiger and Rory's TGL thing. Anyway, tips? I don't know. Scotty Scheffler.
Nice.
Jason Day's in the field. That's so disappointing. But anyway.
What if he wins it? What if we've got dueling trophies? Jason Day with the Hero World Challenge and somebody else with the Australian Open trophy.
Yeah.
Well, Jason's known amongst the Australian golfing public for not coming home to play the Australian Open. Generally, he hasn't played elsewhere that same week. So if he was to win this week, it'd stir up some blowback, I would suggest to you.
Yeah, that's the goodwill that normally comes with an Australian win might be softened a little bit there, I'd suggest.
Yeah. There I'm Sepp Straka.
Sepp Straka. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Max Homer. Yeah. He won in South Africa a couple of weeks ago. He's a really good player. He loves being around Tiger, so he'll be up for it.
It's like a kid when he's
kind of the best.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
Yeah. Rod, you're going to quickly tell us about this other national open that's happening this week, the Investec South African Open.
We'll come to the two opens concurrently in a moment, but sponsor watch firstly, Investec. This will come as a huge surprise to everybody, a banking and wealth management group. Staggering.
I'm shocked.
You wouldn't have picked it from the name, would you? First played 1903, the South African Open, 1 year older than the Australian Open. So you've got two of the game's great national titles being played the same week. And I don't care how you cut it or how it's come about, that's not right. They should both have a better place in the game than where they currently are. And be playing them against each other, both co-sanctioned by the European Tour, leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth. I understand there's all those extraneous factors, but when it comes down to it, you've got these two, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think both suffer a little bit because of it. I think that you got South Africa, Canada, and Australia are the first three national opens after sort of the US and the Open Championship. Outside of those two kind of homes of golf, for want of a better term, they're the three.
In terms of prestige?
Oh no, in terms of age.
Oh, okay.
They're the three oldest outside of the Open and the US Open. Yep. So they're historically important tournaments, and both countries have contributed in terms of players on the world stage, punched well above their weight, both Australia and South Africa. So that I think was the hope of a live type league, that's what you'd have, elevating these national opens that should genuinely be important, but we haven't seen that yet. Anyway, being played at the Gary Player designed Blair, Atholl Golf and Equestrian Centre. So I think this was his home for a long time, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, had a developer came in and they built a golf course there. 8,200 yards in the old money. One par 4 that measures under 400 metres. One on the golf course. 5 par 5s, the longest of them 594 metres, the shortest 519, which is 1 metre longer than the par 4 16. So
it's almost like Gary's trying to compensate for something.
It's
with length.
5 par 3s and 5 par 5s. Look, it is played at elevation, in fairness, so the thinner air helps. That's fair enough. Nobody will just keep moving on as though that didn't happen. So the thinner air does help, so it's not as long as it sort of sounds. But still, I mean, that's a lot of land.
It's a man-sized course.
It's a man-sized golf course.
That is, yeah.
They don't necessarily play it all the way off the back. Didn't really trouble the players last year. 16 under won at Tristan Lawrence. So that's an average of 68 a day for a par 72. Not bad for a 8,000 plus yard golf course. 8,000 yards, 7,500 metres that is.
That's so long.
Yeah, 3/4 of a kilometre.
Even at altitude.
So what? No, it says 7.5 kilometres. So anyway, field. Strong South African presence always. Stronger. Yes. Australian Open's probably got a stronger field this year. There are some decent European names in the field, but nothing that would make you necessarily turn it on over something else. I'm going to tip Tristan Lawrence to go back to back. He had a poor Sunday last week, but he was in it up until then, and he also likes the course because he won here last year.
Nice. Logue?
I'm also going for one of South Africa's higher profile players, Dylan Fratelli. Mm-hmm. Recent form, not great, but anyway, I think he's...
he won on the tour.
Back at home, I think he can do it.
Did he win last year, back into last year, Dylan Fratelli?
Recent form.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with Occy Stridham.
Painfully slow.
Yeah, it's a good name.
Why not? Dylan Fratelli. Watched Dylan Fratelli at Royal Pines a couple of years ago.
Meticulous.
Had to write a column that just said, Dylan, get on with it.
Yep.
Nice player, get on with it.
Meticulous.
Brutally slow, meticulous. Deliberate, I think is the word. Occy Stridham, you said? One of the best names in golf. I'm with you there.
Correct. That's pretty much the reasoning behind it as well.
Is his nickname the Strap?
Lifts.
Is that what they call him?
Oh, I hope so.
How good would it be? You do hope so, don't you? If he ever comes to Australia, that's what he'll be getting, the Strap.
I hope so. There is one final event, and I'm assuming you would call this a national open, the Taiwan Glass Taifeng Open, maybe not, in Taiwan, as you might understand.
Clues in the title.
It is.
What do the sponsors do, Jimmy?
I'm gonna come back.
Okay.
Taifeng Golf Club, which is the golf course of the former president of Taiwan Glass. Taiwan Glass, of course, the title sponsor.
I see
Taiwan
what's going
Glass,
on here.
of course, make glass.
That's the sort of transparency we could do with more of in golf.
Absolutely. It was, my sponsor watch work was very easy where I could guess, but I still followed it up with a little research.
Well, you've got to be careful because you can be caught out sometimes with some of the sponsors.
100%.
Cola sounds like a drink, but it ain't.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of the last Asian Tour events of the year. It's a heavy sort of local field with a bit of the Thai and Indian presence. There's a fairly good sort of Asian Tour field here. There is an occasional Australian mixed in there who have not maybe got in here or decided that they need to focus on their order of merit when they play each year. That's Todd Sinnott, Terry Pilkadaris.
Cashing in on the Asian tour rather than supporting his local tour.
Lovely.
Doug Klein. Yeah. And I think that was it from my list. They were all in the field last week, so they've then made the trip over. Look, it's tough for some of these Asian Tour events when there is big events on around them, so there won't be a lot of attention paid, certainly from this country, unless Todd Sinnott probably gets around it. But it's another sign that the Asian Tour is back when they can host these events.
Absolutely.
And consistently keep doing it is a credit to them, credit to Cho Min Tan and to all those guys to get these events running.
And these events are important.
And have places.
If you want to talk about in terms of professional golf growing the game, quote unquote, this does a whole lot more to grow the game in a place like Taiwan than most of the golf tournaments who claim that they're growing the game around the place. So,
absolutely,
grassroots golf.
Who wants to open us with a tip?
Is anybody not tipping Todd Sinnott? I'll tell you why I'm tipping him. He's 69th on the order of merit. He's got to get the top 60 to keep his card, which is clearly why he would have made what would have been an agonising decision to not play the Australian Open, assuming he was qualified. And if he wasn't, he probably would have pre-queued because I know he likes to play.
He was. No, he was in.
He was in. So that's a big decision on him. But it tells you that's motivated. If he's going to give up a week at the Australian Open, he's going to be motivated. And he played sneaky well last week for a tied 7th finish without any fanfare at all. So he's playing decently, and in that field over there should do well, and he'll be looking to make sure that he's got somewhere to play next year. So I think he's got everything going in his favour.
Nice. Loke?
I'm liking the Japanese player, Ryosuke Kinoshita.
Okay.
Enough said.
And anybody who knows anything about golf will understand why you went with that. He's not going to hold our hands.
You're not going to give any reasoning there?
I'd like to see your workings on that.
Order of merit, position 78th. That's a strong indicator. That's all I'll say.
Okay, nice.
He's played his way right where he wants to be into 78th on the order of merit with 2 events to go. He's a real tactician.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously. I'm going to go with Thailand's Poom Saxhansen because he's a very good player. He can make a lot of birdies. I also love saying Poom Saxhansen.
I was about to say, you've mastered the pronunciation of his name, so you're going to use it at every opportunity you get.
Correct. I know, I interviewed him once, and it was good fun. Yeah. So, you know. All right, that will do us for episode 42 of Playing from the Tips. Rod, you better toddle off to school and pack your lunch.
Yeah.
And Adrian Logue, I believe you're going to try and claim another title in your legendary Australian Golf Media Association playing career today.
Somebody's got to hold Mark Wilson to account. He can't be allowed to just run away with these things.
You can't ever allow.
Greedy Mark Wilson would just be like trying to get his name etched on every trophy you can possibly get.
That's the problem when you're the best player in the field. You often end up winning. It's just the way it works. You can't let an AGM... there you go.
If we're tipping the Australian Golf Media Association Championship, I'm tipping Paul Prendergast.
And Paul Prendergast is a genuinely quality good golfer.
And business partner with Mark?
Actually hits the club face, unlike you. So
that'll be it.
The two of them, they're in cahoots.
Yeah, of course they are. It's a conspiracy.
Somebody's got to break up that cabal.
You can't let an AGMA championship go by without the legendary words of the great Bob Shearer, who lost last year. You don't know pressure till you've got to bogey the last 4 to win the Golf Riders.
That's a pressure I've known.
It's on
what a moment to finish. You can follow all of these events, but particularly the Australian Open, on the Golf Australia magazine website, golfaustralia.com.au. There will be a daily email going out with all of the news and yarns and everything from on the ground here from the Golf Australia magazine website, and you can sign up to that on their website as well. We will be back next week on Playing from the Tips.